Hello. Um, yeah, I'm doing this video. Let's get this off here. Let's get the cursor off so I can see my nose. That's better. Haven't done this before, so I thought I'd do a rant. So hello. I thought I'd do this video. So rants in bed, particularly about Man United. Yeah. So, inspired by those videos I've seen outside Old Trafford. I don't go to Old Trafford, by the way. I stopped going a long time ago for several reasons. It's not as simple as one or another. But the Glazers basically really put me off big time. Yeah, long story. Just other things, but Glazers really, and the way the club was changing. Then FC United formed. Kind of, that's my match going sort of timeline anyway. Lots of success, not so much anymore. Yeah, so I would class myself as a proper supporter, although I don't go anymore. I guess judge me on that if you want. What does that mean? Well, if you, in my mind, if you say "how dare you," then you're not a proper supporter, because proper supporters know what proper supporters are. So I would say I'm a proper supporter, but I would say definitely, not much going, but I did back in the day. Yeah, bedtime rant. I thought, because obviously I'm not outside Old Trafford after a game. United have just lost 3-0 to Chelsea. Should have lost 4-0. Should have lost 5 or 6-0. Problems. Where do we start? So I just wanted to do this and make a succinct video. So as you've seen in the title, there is just one solution, in my mind anyway. So in my mind, actually, one or two things has to happen. So firstly, a whole bunch of the executives have got to go, including the Glazers. I'm going to break this down, but basically my point, okay, so I'm talking to the Glazers. What have you ever given to Manchester United, considering you own the club? How have you nurtured? How have you, it's like family, isn't it? Like, you don't just like treat your kids like they're any other people. You don't just interact with them and give them stuff when it benefits you. You give stuff when it benefits them. So, what have the Glazers ever done for Manchester United? Given to Manchester United that costs them anything? Nothing. I mean, that itself is a completely outrageous situation, because they could actually do some stuff that haven't to for their own benefit, like make sure the stadium doesn't leak, like make sure the training ground's one of the best training grounds in the world, like it used to be before you, the Glaciers, came along. You're just a joke, and you just don't give a beep, really, and that's obvious to anyone who cares to look, United fan or not United fan, proper United fan or not proper United fan. The Glaciers would say, we've never welcomed you, we never liked you, because straight from day one, we knew what you were about. The Glazers, if they want to sort out the mess, they are the mess, really, partly. Anyway, really ranting now. But really, what have they ever done, rationally speaking? But I'm pretending I'm not a United fan. What have they done? What have they actually done? I know they've taken loads of stuff out of the club, like loans, directors' loans. I know they put the club into a lot of debt and a lot of what are the proper match day going fans' money that's paid to see Man United goes into is paying interest on the Glazers' loans, which are totally unnecessary. They've actually done nothing. done nothing that doesn't benefit the club unless it benefits them. I mean, there's stuff they could have done that is kind of neutral, doesn't benefit them. It's not a great negative on them. They're not like pulling money out of their pockets left, right, and centre, but they could have done a few things, you know. What these things are, who would know? I mean, time. Could spend more time at the club. I mean, they give me the impression they don't really give a flying crap about anything. When do we see them at the club? When do we see them? I mean, the owners. Can you imagine me? I'm a father, I've got 3 boys. Can you imagine me just like leaving them to their own devices? Pretending I don't own them, that I'm not their father. Just all that stuff, they just couldn't give anything. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, the Glazers are kind of a laughing stock in sports ownership. Really, if you look at any other sports franchise across the world, the way it's run, you'd have to be hard pressed. Though I think the new owners, Chelsea, are giving them a really good run for their money by their incompetency. But hey ho, I mean, let's talk about the problems of the team. Oh, ironically, who do we go and beat? Chelsea. You know, there you go. Surprise, surprise. So I'm going to base my argument on several things. So I think, to me, there's like 4 or 5 really important ingredients of a football club which dictate success or failure. Dictate winning trophies and getting nowhere near winning trophies. Dictate winning leagues and Champions Leagues in particular, or getting nowhere close. We're nowhere close. We haven't been since Fergie was manager. Those were the days, weren't they? Good times. At least we can remember them. The fortune of being a Manchester United fan in this is we had the best times ever. It feels like we're having the worst times ever, but you know, we take it on the chin. So 4 or 5 ingredients, and so I want to talk about them. And I think part of the reason, if you're a proper fan, and you have been for a long time, obviously if you're like in your 30s, you won't remember what I remember because you weren't alive. But I've been a proper fan all my life. And actually, I remember in the 80s we were as bad as this, if not worse. So in my mind, when particular fans, whether you would call them particularly parts of the fandom, let's say, kick off, I'm like, come on. So me making this video enough is enough, really. Watched a lot on YouTube in particular about fans' responses. It's just gone beyond the pale where you it's like, what would you call it, the mental condition? It's got so bad you just can't emotionally react anymore. A lot of videos, a lot of the real hardcore. I'm not real hardcore, admit that. But the real hardcore saying, I'm done. So I've already partly gone through that. Anyway, which, if you don't know the history, partly would be, I think, a lot of the fans that left when FC United performed, they were done. So done for different reasons, but I'm kind of like, I can't really be done, but if I could, I'm done again. I feel their pain because I felt it. Yeah, it's kind of hard, but I basically break it down. So this would be my conclusion. Okay, it's as simple as this, though the situation is complex. Either Ten Hag's got to go, or the playing staff entirely has got to go. Pretty much. Sounds draconian. So I'm going to talk about different things: the players, the manager, who's in charge, the chief executive, and the owners. So it's a family. It's a symbiosis. So what we've seen is you've got to have a good manager at Man United. A Man United manager to be successful has got to be a great manager. Because they can be a great manager at Ajax or at another club, even Chelsea. But Manchester United is Manchester United. You cannot compare it to any other club. Manchester United is Manchester United because the things that make other clubs haven't happened. Those clubs don't have that history. As a fan, I feel like I'm talking to the converted here. As a fan, you understand that better than anyone. There is no other club like Man United, and the two that come closest would be Barcelona and Real Madrid, and I guess they would say the same thing, but for different reasons. So three massive clubs, proper massive clubs, because they've got massive deep history that goes beyond football. And that's why Manchester United is the biggest club, because it goes beyond football. I'm not going to explain that because I don't need to. Barcelona, in a way, goes beyond football, but in a different way to Manchester United and Real Madrid. Doesn't really, but sort of. Deep traditions, and that's what makes Man United greater than Liverpool, let's say. Very similar in prestige, but Liverpool's entirely built on football and a football culture and a football identity. Man United have that from Busby, but they also, from Busby, have other things deeper than football. So, three unique clubs. So the point really there is just simply like, it's as simple as this. Given that you need a unique, special kind of player for success, you need a unique, special kind of manager for success. And when we've had success, we've had those. Clearly do not have those anymore. And I'm not criticising Ten Hag for that, or the players. I believe Ten Hag can. Actually, still do believe Ten Hag can do that, but other things have got to change in the football club, like the Glazers have got to go. I mean, I'm just ranting about the Glazers, which I actually didn't want to do, but you get into it in your mind, you start doing this, and it's like, well, actually, the Glazers basically have, and I'm talking to Glazers here, you have reached a high watermark with the value you can bring Manchester United to. To increase that, you need success. We are never going to have a success with you owning a club, because you're abortive parents, basically. It's the way I'd say it. So sell the club, give it to someone. For once, do a decent thing in your life. Sell it to someone who cares about the club. Secondly, primarily, do something and act something. And it's not like you haven't multiplied your investment, guys. Come on. Do something for the fans, yeah? For those who love the club. For us. And go. Just go. I mean, what are you hanging around for? You are making a mockery of yourselves by this situation. Absolute mockery. You know, you're the laughing stock. You, the Glazers, not the club, are the laughing stock as owners amongst other football club hierarchies. I mean, how certain fans love to laugh. We don't really care. I don't really care. Part of football. So partly you just have to accept that, the good times with the bad times, which other football clubs fans don't seem to remotely understand. Anyway, I think this is a bed rant, but yeah. Excuse me, I got a cough. So the club. So this is my problem with the whole situation. So let's just talk about the team. It's not just about the team, but other things. So what's clear to me, and I guess I'm speaking to the players here, is the players have thrown Ten Hag under the bus. I mean, there's several things I could say, which are just so obvious, don't need to say. But if I kind of begun to discuss them, I'll try not to snarl. Um, sort of effort, um, pride in your own performance, actually wanting to, how would I say this? Actually wanting to do the in every walk of life, successful people are compared to the unsuccessful people. It's minor gains. You want to go that extra mile compared to the marathon that you have been to be successful. Um, and to a certain extent, all that sort of stuff, which we're not going to talk about anymore because it's obvious. It's like, well, do you? And to us, the fans, it looks like you don't. Um, but you're basically, we watch, and you've thrown Ten Hag under the bus. How dare you? And really, how dare you? Because um, the reality is, for whatever was to who and whoever was doing whatever, including the managers at the time, David Moyes got thrown under the bus. Louis Van Gaal got thrown under the bus somewhat. Um, had lots of issues with Jose Mourinho, but actually Jose got completely thrown under the bus, completely by the entire squad. Um, Ollie came in, started to fix it. We're seeing a pattern there. If the manager survives a season post Fergie, done alright, or some progress or some sort of fixing, done alright. Um, Second season, thrown under the bus. Ranić comes. I mean, what the? I mean, we'll talk about the executives, but like this shows just how inept Manchester United is run as a football club. What were you doing in that situation, getting Ranić in? I mean, poor Ranić for a start. Completely the worst kind of person to put in that situation, which is a kind of Arsene Wenger kind of thinking football manager. Because those weren't the issues, were they? Clearly. I mean, what were you doing? You sat around a table and gone, oh, well, what can we do? This will definitely fix the issue. Let's get someone with a thinking mind who can think and give us a different point of view. I mean, those weren't the problems, were they? It's like coming into a business, yeah, where you've got a particular problem. I've got to think of one off the top of my head. Like, you just have a far less superior product to your um, competitors, but it's a cheaper product. You're not selling it very well, so you need the guy to come in to either make it a superior product or to sell it as it is. And you get someone in who is just a marketing whiz because you think, oh, let's just change the marketing and make ourselves more glamorous than our glamorous competitor. I mean, is this even prophetic what I'm saying? Maybe so. Um, that'll fix it. But the people who are saying that'll fix it and hire Ranić actually don't realise they're the problem. And what the Glazers are doing in the background, they probably were like, you guys just pick whoever you want, we're fine. We don't really understand. I mean, what goes on in these board meetings, in these big wig meetings, when the people who supposedly run our club meet? Did the Glazers just say, we don't really understand that stuff, you guys deal with it? Because I would think probably so. But anyway, Ollie got thrown under the bus second season. And then we really started seeing the problems in the culture of the club. That's something we need to talk about, culture. Ranić came along. That wasn't going to fix the issue, but the players just revolted more. Ten Hag comes in. Instant problems. Last season, beginning of season, lost to Brentford, lost to Brighton. Everyone knows this. Big problems. He actually fixes them. We're looking forward to a better season, particularly with the players we bought. So a lot of things I think can be criticised, but the fans probably would have done something similar, if not the same. Not saying we would have done the same, but we'd have bought players like have been bought in both Ten Hag and Ollie's second years. So like we don't have a problem with that, okay? But problems from the off, right from the start. So far, this is on repeat. So what actually has been on repeat since Fergie left is to some degree or another, and it seems to be a problem that gets worse a long time, is the players have completely thrown the manager under the bus. Well, I say let's throw the players under the bus. Because at the end of the day, we love some of you. We don't particularly love some of you, but actually the real fans love you. The real fans are for you. The real fans hate standing there at the end booing. I remember the Chelsea game with the Dirty 30 who left. I mean, that's the culture of being a Manchester United fan. Okay, it's like everyone's up for criticism, including ourselves. Yeah, we've got to behave a certain way, so we don't boo the players. We don't just leave half the stadium. Okay, some people have got to go. That's fair enough. We don't do those kind of things. But you, the players, have kind of forced us into this, behaving like we're not Manchester United fans, because what we're seeing on the pitch is abysmal. Do you want to play for the club? The irony is, some of the players I'm going to criticise here, I love. I absolutely love. Like I loved when I started supporting Man United when I was 8. We'll talk about that later. Players who, like, now you realise quite a few years later, like when you see actually good quality players, absolute rubbish. Some of you we love, but you're absolute rubbish. Your attitude stinks. Needs to be fixed. Something needs to be fixed. So if you keep throwing a manager on the bus, you've all just got to go. And if that's not a solution, then the manager's got to go. But this clearly isn't working. Something clearly is wrong, deep-rooted in our football club, because we've had this over and over again. So this isn't drastic, me saying the players have just got to go. My mentality on the manager is we've done this with the manager so many times and it hasn't worked. Can't do it again. Can't. Got to give Ten Hag time. Got to let someone come in, accept whatever. Just let them have their plan. Let them completely give them the freedom to do what they want to do, and then based on results 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, depending on how bad it gets, sack them. If it's not working, if it really isn't working, but it's really not working now. We're into this again. It's like, if Ten Hag now, in his second season, is the Ollie of the second season, why sack him? Because it's not going to work. Who are we going to bring in the moment? Ten Hag reasonably should be fired with the mentality of the people that run our club. But they've done this before. And we bring in another Ranić after Ollie, what happens? It just gets worse. It doesn't get any better. Never got any better. So much so that hangs over. So things don't even improve for Ten Hag when he starts. He's got all this hanging over him. But Ten Hag would be sacked. Any other club, any other era, be fired. But we've done this before, as I said. If Ten Hag's fired, maybe he should be, But it's like, that's not the point. The point is, if he is, who's going to want to come in and oversee this mess of a football team? This trying to operate in a mess of a football club. Just the entire thing is a total mess. Ranić won't. He's done it before, but the next Ranić might. Same thing's going to happen. I mean, I'm not saying Ten Hag should be. It's like, let's just give it scenario is who do you get in? You get a really strict older football manager who's never been given the chance. Sam Allardyce, for instance. Not for the sake of for any other reason than like whoever you're gonna get's not gonna succeed. So let's get someone who's really gonna make the players pay big time. Would be my emotional response. Someone who's really strict. Who, if the likes of Jadon Sancho turn up late for training, just say, right, you're training with the ladies team. Go on, just bugger off, just go. Train with the under 11s. Don't turn up in the day. Come at like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and you can train with the kids, the real kids. Someone strict like that, who will not give an inch. But basically, give the players a hell of a time. So they realise, you had it good, lads. You had it good. I'm not saying that's what should happen, because of course that shouldn't happen. None like that should come in Wall Football Club. But if we have to sack Ten Hag, then that's what happens. Personally, I feel Ten Hag should be given the time that we said we were going to give him. If we're going to get on his back now and get him fired, or he's going to be fired by the executives, which he may well be at some point, without giving that time, then what's the point? What's the point? We said we were going to do this. I think the executives believed we were going to do this. They've given him some of their backing, somewhat. They let him buy some of the players he wants, but not the players he wants. But it's a start. So we started this journey. Let's finish it. Because maybe by the end of it, you'll realise places you got to go. And the people that got to go have got to go. So that's the situation. Players, you've thrown your manager under the bus. You got to go. That sounds a bit harsh, and it is. But you've done this before. So let's have a discussion about who we get rid of and who we don't. So the players who did this 2 years ago, who basically downed tools and made out that they weren't interested in playing for a club. Now, as a fan, we're done with you. We're done with you. As a United fan, the relation we have with players is a symbiotic two-way relationship. We support you without fail. As long as every time you turn up on that pitch and the away pitches, you make the desired, necessary effort and play for the badge. That's the relationship we have with the fans. If that's not happening, we're done with you. So we gave you a chance. So all the players that have come in, experienced that. I think they've all got to go. Don't you? Give the new players the benefit of the chance, because they've come into a very dodgy culture where this is acceptable and it's not. Excuse me, I've got something on the screen. And there are certain players we love. So it would be easy to talk about the players we don't want to dump. So forget the new players, the ones that have come in. I mean, ironies, Harry Maguire you would keep now. That's how bad this has got. When he's actually got his head right, his head in the game, when he's been given an opportunity to play, he's played and he's put in performance. Now, 2 months ago, the first player you'd have got rid of was Harry Maguire. So, listen, players, yeah? Listen to what I just said, okay? That is your redemption. So go and do it. For beep's sake. If you want to stay and play for this club, if you want to play for us, go and do it. Go and do a Harry Maguire, okay? Don't do what you're doing. Bruno, love Bruno. He is the classic Manchester United player that we love down the years. The only one who can, at the moment, unlock a game. But Bruno, you're not a captain. If you want to keep your captaincy, behave like a Manchester United captain. That means don't behave like a captain, behave like a Manchester United captain. Show some leadership, yeah? Because you're not just a star player anymore, or one of the star players. You're the captain primarily. You're not even a star player. You have a responsibility to the team, to the club, and to the fans. Behave like you're a captain, please. Stop ranting. Stop sulking. You never did this when you came in the club. Okay, things might have been easier. You might have been the golden boy, the new golden boy. You might have fixed everything when you came in, and you did. But there hit a point where you started sulking. In every match, you just started sulking. Stop sulking. Tune your emotion mentally into the game. Yeah? Show your emotions through your football boots. Not through your mouth, not through your arms, not through your body language. And that can be said for a lot of players. Absolutely love Marcus Rashford, but where are you this season? In my mind, you've got to go. You know, there are several types of classical Manchester United player. Marcus Rashford is the lad who grew up in the club. Got to play for the first team because he's good enough, because he's a good quality player. But you can't just turn up and decide on a day that you want to run around, that you want to make an effort, that you want to do this, you want to do that, that you want to play. You are supposed to represent the club and the fans in a particular way because of who you are. Okay, you're not. Marcus Rashford, you got to go. Luke Shaw, I would keep. Dalot. Just beginning to love Diego Dalot. But there is an inconsistency there. I don't think he's a Manchester United player at the end of the day, or what we would consider. I'd like to give you the benefit of the doubt, but in what we've said, far too inconsistent. You've got to go. Who else? Martial. Let's not even bother talking about Martial. Why don't we just pay him his wages and just say be off it? Well, we can't do that, can we? Why? We'll talk about it later. I don't mind Ten Hag actually playing Martial against Bournemouth. I'll explain that in a bit. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head who. I mean, I really want to forget most of these players anyway. But who really is covering themselves in anything, let alone gold at the moment? Canacho, yeah. Palestri when we're seeing him play. Mainu. Harry Maguire recently. So however you want to do it, let's just assume I'm right. Go. So clear out either in different transfer windows, buying a whole bunch of players. But we've done this before. We've, indirectly, we're doing it directly now. So players have come in, they've not performed. 3 or 4 years later, they're out because they're not good enough. So we recognise the players we've got to dump. We go and buy the players we want to buy for whatever reason. We just buy them. So basically, works out either we've got a list worst defenders on basically Santa's naughty list. God, it's really depressing in Manchester. God, it's Monday after the match. What's with the weather? I mean, there's that fog. Jeez. Yeah, I'm in South Manchester, kind of. Yeah. Just off the motorway. Some weird things going on. There's like water running along the telephone lines. Oh, it's dripped off. Yeah, typical drizzly day in Manchester, folks. Yeah. So anyway, I got distracted by the weather. So yeah, just like either Santa's list, the worst offenders, get rid of them and just replace them with whoever, or either find someone who's going to replace them on that list, get rid of that person, buy a new player. Makes sense. I think what's shown as well, we don't really particularly have a very balanced squad. We've got particular problems. But in my mind, the team's got to go, and if the team's not got to go, then Ten Hag's got to go. I wouldn't come anywhere close to getting rid of Ten Hag. So, whether we like it or not, I'm sure the executives and the bigwigs would think, all this money we've spent and down the years, and like, but we've got particular problems in the playing squad. So when I'm talking about players, I'm not talking about any of the new players. I don't care. So the new players are coming into like a tricky situation. So that there is a playing culture that the club has. Okay, so in everything, the playing success entirely down the years, black and white. I mean, this is not something you have to talk about. It's crystal clear to anyone who understands anything about Manchester United Football Club. The playing culture down the years, when we're successful, it's because of that playing culture. So where does the Fergie get success come from? Well, it's just not about Fergie doing the Fergie thing. Fergie come in, saw the problems in the club, fixed them, and was like, identified, this is the culture of this club, this is how this club plays, this is how the fans demand the club plays, this is what we're going to do. This is Manchester United. And guess what? When we're not Manchester United and we don't have the identity of Manchester United, it does not work. So the executives, your problem is you don't even understand anything about that culture. And the problem's really manifested in the team because you don't see in that culture. So guys, what you got to do, you got to be like a Manchester United player. Goes without saying for us fans. There were certain players that were showing some of that, some players that are, but very, very few. But the new players come in and like, it's like, how do we expect these players to succeed? Like Amrabat, let's be honest, Amrabat's been useless. But how was he not supposed to be anything other than useless coming into this player culture? Into this team? My point is, when the new players came in, particularly in the Fergie era, they got shown, they knew from day one, this is the culture, this is expectation. Not from anyone else, but from the players themselves, from the dressing room. So what's very clear is that he's thrown under the buses, particularly the Ranieri year, the second Ollie season, that same season, and now, it's like, the dressing room is full of snowflakes. Absolutely full of snowflakes. There is no leadership in there. There is no anything really. There's nothing related to developing the culture that is a Manchester United team. So why would we expect Manchester United to do anything but fail? Someone's got to come in and change that. It starts with a manager actually, and there are questions that have to be asked of the manager why it's not done that. Or no, no, not necessarily. That's the wrong question. How has he done it? I think partly it's every mistake Fergie like don't want to do it like Fergie, want to get away from that. Well, Fergie copied Busby pretty much. Fergie did two things. He copied Busby and he identified the problems and fixed them. Um, I'd like to believe Ten Hag's doing both, which then means the players really are throwing him under the bus. So those players we want to keep, the Shaws of the world, the Maguires, the um, even the even the likes of Marcus Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, like you lead that dressing room, you create a culture in that dressing room of not just a successful team or a team full stop. I mean, fundamentally, what I'm talking about, to some extent, you can discuss it and say, well, what's that look like? Well, it looks like something. So you guys do what you want, but you lead. So this was the problems with the fans, I think, from my perspective, issue with Harry Maguire when he was captain. No leadership. Bruno Fernandes, no leadership. Like, you're the captain. It starts with you. So what do we need moving forwards? Well, we probably need to buy in a captain who's going to be a captain, and may well not even to have the quality to play in the team that we expect. So you're kind of swapping one problem for the other, but at least we would have a captain. I'll give you an example. Steve Bruce wasn't the best central defender in the world ever, but was pretty good. Never got capped by anyone. Never played for England. Okay, a whole bunch of really good world-class centre-backs. Never got the opportunity to play for England. Should he have? Probably should have. But he wouldn't want a lot of caps, would he? But a Manchester United captain. So if Bruno doesn't want to be that captain, we need to buy in. And I think the issue for me with Bruno is the captaincy the same as Harry Maguire? It's just like a noose around your neck that just tightens the worse things get. Probably yes. So this would be my point overall with the playing squad, the entire team, and how they play on the pitch, how they perform. There's a culture. Verti's success because he understood that culture and he tried to facilitate it to the best of his abilities. Now, in the early years, it didn't really work. But he kind of, looking back, clearly understood what needed to be changed, despite the fact that the results on the pitch weren't good. What needed to, how to build and facilitate that culture. But actually, that culture in itself, with the success of the 90s, feeds into itself. It creates itself. So the kind of, if you read all the players' biographies, and I'm not claiming to have read them all, so Juan Mata talks a little bit about this, but in terms of football culture, but not so much Manchester United. So clearly he didn't get what some of the other guys before him got. But if you read biographies like Gary Neville's, like Rio Ferdinand's, like particularly Michael Carrick's, because he tells the story. Just like you just don't read it in the pages; it's actually a story. They're the guys at the top of my head who the most, but like the culture is so inbuilt into the team that Fergie doesn't have to do anything. That it's so inbuilt in what it means to be a Manchester United player and play for Manchester United that the dressing room demands it. So the problem we got, actually, I'll tell the story. So Michael Carrick's, in his biography, walks into the dressing room with all these. It's a strong dressing room with a strong culture with a Manchester United identity. Okay, walks into it. Obviously, they're class players anyway, but it's like he says, basically explains the story of how when he walks into that Manchester United dressing room with the likes of the Ferdinands and the Rooneys and the Ronaldos of this world and other players, John O'Shea even. John O'Shea epitomises that culture of what it means to be a Manchester United player. Another kind of Steve Bruce figure. You see, we need these players in our team. When they get sold, they're rubbish. They can't play for any other club. There have been no Manchester United players ever been sold by Manchester United that's gone on to better things apart from Ronaldo. So why Ronaldo? Because he was a bloody genius. Like Fergie says, he could play for Wrexham in the non-league and be as good. So anyway, walks in and they're like, who are you? The other Manchester United players, because of the culture, treat him like, you don't just swagger in and walk in here and just behave like however you want. These are the standards. And these are the high bar of the standards. And this is what you have to achieve. And then we're going to accept you. But at the moment, who the BPU? You're nobody. Until you fit in here and you align yourself with us and you meet our expectations, then what's your name, Michael Carrick? Really, was the... And then Michael Carrick's the last player, really, of that culture to come through the club, really. So that was kind of waning for whatever reasons post-Fergie, but you still had the players. The Rooneys, the Carricks, the Giggs. So although some of those players threw the managers under the bus, there was still a culture, although it was dying. My point would be, okay, this understands why this season's gone so bad and the Ollie's last season went so bad. Because there's no culture. There's no culture actually what it means to be a Manchester United player. I mean, you've got the likes of Anthony complaining that the likes of the old players, they never phone him and never ask him how he's doing. Oh, now I love you, Anthony, because you're a Manchester United player. I love the potential, but really, don't do that. They're pundits. It's their job to criticise you. Why do you think they get these players onto the Manchester United games? Yeah, because they actually not only have permission to say what they're saying and to say something, but they know what they're saying because they've been in that dressing room and they look at it and go, what the... I mean, can you imagine any of our players nowadays being in a dressing room, even Bruno Fernandes, in the dressing room with Roy Keane? I mean, bloody hell. You know, not every player, but blood would be spilled. Yeah? Keane would be like, that's not Manchester United player, that's not how we behave. Don't do that. If they did it again, blood would be spilled. And this is the point. When you create that culture and you don't, are not part of that culture, you're like a Man C player in a Manchester United squad. You're not accepted. You come in and you're like, I mean, can you imagine coming to training every day and being basically like not treated like you're part of the club? You've got nothing to do with Manchester United. You might as well be off playing in Anfield or playing in the United Stadium in the blue half of Manchester or the blue 10%. Geez, those guys can't still fill up the stadium. Despite, I mean, it's embarrassing. I mean, this is the beauty of Manchester United being a Manchester United fan, right? Manchester City had the best manager in the world. They've got owners who've got all the money in the world. They just go out and buy whoever they want. Naturally, whoever they want wants to play for them because they've got the best players anyway. City fans, you still can't fill your stadium, okay? You still can't fill your stadium. And, by the way, it's not very big. It's not very big. I mean, you got to give some respect to fans begrudgingly, like Liverpool's fans, respect. But the rest of the fans we just don't like. I mean, Manchester City are Manchester City at the end of the day. They cannot be anything other than Manchester City. Jeez. But in Magoo, bitter blue, still bitter. You know, a funny story. When City actually won the Champions League, like certain people in my Facebook profile popped up with messages. You know, guess what they're saying? Like, they can't be happy their club's actually won the treble. There was a post with a picture of Fergie with a red nose. I'm like, you're like, that clearly is at the moment Manchester City's greatest footballing achievement, and all you can think about is Manchester United. Well, that says it all. And that's actually what we're talking about, really. That's not just a story. The culture of what it means to be a Manchester United fan and matchday fan, proper fan, and what it means for other clubs. We're not like other clubs. There's that culture. There's that identity. When I see the team playing, I don't see any cultural identity at all. That's the most serious problem of all the problems. So actually, what's the one thing that needs to be fixed? It's getting that culture back. But a whole bunch of people have got to be replaced. And you do feel sorry for the players like Amrabat who come in. They've got no chance in hell. Onana. No chance in hell. Bigger conversation, but there are expectations anyway. Playing for Manchester United. So bring in people who are not even going to play well in terms of skill and ability and performance, but put their heart into it. You know, the likes of Steve Bruce with his wonky nose. Now, how do you think he got that wonky nose? Because he put that nose in places where he was going to get hurt. Professional pride. And professional pride playing for the badge, not because you're playing for the badge, because your badge is Manchester United Football Club. So, fix the culture, one. Get players who will put the effort in, who want to play for the badge. And this is my problem with the likes of Marcus Rashford. He should know. He better than anyone else knows all this stuff. So that performance against Newcastle. I mean, there isn't a word bad enough to describe that performance, given who Marcus Rashford is. So I talked about a lot of things. Ironically, Fergie had these problems. Okay, so when I started supporting Manchester United, back in the day, as just a kid, I used to just worship the players. So what good players did we have? Well, we just sold Mark Hughes, who came back. We had Brian Robson. Quite like Gary Bailey, but I can't remember actually seeing him play on TV when United were on TV back in the 80s. The fog's going. The fog's lifted. Well, let's hope it lifts metaphorically. quite like Johnny Seaverbeck, though he really wasn't that very good. Um, so there's that kid bias for in your football team. So everyone was better on a thought, but not Brian Robson. So there's Brian Robson, league apart, Mark Hughes, and this is when I first started supporting United. Paul McGrath, you would put into that, and Norman Whiteside. So you had that whole boozy culture which Fergie destroyed, and just this is the point, okay? I'm gonna not swear, but I should really say it. So beep it. Fergie thought, don't care. Need to fix the culture. Those players have basically got to go. Actually, Brian Robson was part of that culture. Obviously, you can't get rid of Brian Robson because he's the only decent player you've got. The only world-class player. Norman Whiteside got really bad injuries and then got sold. Paul McGrath. Still got a lot of affection for Paul McGrath, but was the epitome of that drinking culture. Had to go just for that reason. Obviously, he had his dodgy knees later, but he was a class centre back. And all the other players were kind of average. They weren't. They got nowhere near the club in Busby's era. So we just kept buying these players. So the thing is, we bought really good players who were performing for their clubs. So the third thing is the fear factor, the character. You bring in likes of players who are like who? The Roy Keanes of this world, the Park Ji-sungs of this world, the Wayne Rooneys of this world, the Ronaldos of this world, who have and then you bring through the likes of the John O'Sheas, the Nevilles, the Giggs, the Butts, the Scholes, the Beckhams. Guess what? You get success. But you bring in players who have no fear of playing in the Manchester United environment, because it is a particular, we talked about that, but it's particular pressure. Some players just cannot play in it. And in the 80s, we bought too many players who were performing well for other clubs and couldn't do it. United. When I started supporting, who were the first players I think we bought? So I'm not sure we bought Chris Turner, or he was at the club previously. My mind's a bit fuzzy. But we definitely bought the Gibsons, Terry, Colin Gibson, and we bought Peter Davenport. Absolute tosh. Fergie came in, Ron Atkinson gets sacked. Actually, I say it's one of my oldest memories, which is true. 4-1, One Blows Cup, League Cup, away at Southampton. I think we just beat them 5-1 previously at Old Trafford. I remember Lee Sharp doing his squad. I think it must have been his first goal, doing the dodgy knee slides. So we're the likes of Lee Sharp at the club. So we had a good kid, so to speak. Then later down the line, Lee Sharp gets ditched because of the culture. It's a surprise, given what I'm discussing, Fergie was such a success. No, because that culture was the thing, was the first thing he thought about developing. Anything came into contact with disturbing that culture, diluting it even, bang, out the door, straight away. Even players that didn't deserve to go out the door. If Fergie kind of felt you were diluting that culture, then that, because it's a winning culture, and it's the way Manchester United win, because it's the culture of Manchester United. Manchester United cannot be anything other than their culture. I mean, it goes without saying, but for some reason I have to say it because it's just not there. Anyway, we bought these three players, just like could not perform. No, it wasn't Colin Gibson. Terry Gibson, particularly, suffered. I think Peter Davenport did as well. Colin Gibson probably wasn't good enough to play for Manchester United in the first place. Yeah, Chris Turner. I mean, talk about goalkeepers. All I remember Chris Turner doing, might be biased, is dropping the ball in the net. He obviously did more than that. I mean, I'm sorry if Chris Turner gets to listen to this and go, hey, that's really unfair. But he just wasn't good enough to play for Manchester United. Remember the season? What was it? So Fergie came in '86. I think I'm right. Mid-table finish. So I can't remember if it's the season after, but I think it's probably the season after that where we finished second with that pool of players. So Fergie started bringing players in, started developing. Did a kind of Mourinho, finished second, but a long way off Liverpool at the time. I think, did Mourinho finish second to City? I can't remember. I think yeah, must have been City. Doesn't matter. But like, then Mourinho just turned into this sort of beast of a manager we didn't want. But looking back, you understand, and actually, what you understand is Fergie went through the same thing. Like, that's as good as it gets for this team. He sold them all. He got rid of them, put a whole bunch of new players in. So what did Fergie do in that situation? Firstly, he sold the players because they weren't good enough. So if you're not good enough, bang. It's not just about ability again, it's about culture. It's about that, having the know-how about yourself and the belief in yourself, even egotism to some point, the Ronaldos and the Rooneys of this world, to understand that's not an issue for you. That's your stage. Old Trafford is your stage. You were born to play for a club like Manchester United and to perform on that stage. And some players we bought since Fergie's left, just like the opposite. The Marianne Fellaini's of this world. There's no criticism of Fellaini, but like you put him on that pitch, turned into a, it's either fight or flight. And there are players who just, however good they are, will just run a million miles. That situation scares them. And that's why I see when United are playing poorly, it's like there's far too many players in our squad at the moment in that situation where it's difficult, who will take flight instead of fight. There's no one who seems to have the fight in them at all. Maybe Bruno wants to have the fight, but can't. It's not that type of player, so that's probably why he gets frustrated. But again, Bruno, don't, you shouldn't be doing that. You're Man United captain now. We let you get away with it, but that's not how you should be behaving. Actually, Bruno just needs to do his thing and not have the burden. But who would you give the captaincy to? No one wants it. I'll tell you what I would do, actually. I would just say we don't have a captain. I would literally go, okay, who's the youngest player in the squad, on the team in the 11? You're captain for the day. Have no team captain, because there is no team captain, is there? I'd like to think Marcus Rashford could be the captain, but accordingly, he's already rejected that idea. I think Ollie said that him and Pogba. But Pogba's another great example. Like, and there are other great examples. Even if Fergie, who did we sign? That Argentinian guy, one of the best players in the world. Veron. I would have thought built for that stage, like Pogba, when he came back from Juve, but like couldn't hack it at all. And there's just some players who don't have it in them. Playing for Manchester United in that environment, because you only experience that playing for Manchester United, you just don't know. But like Fergie in particular tried to sign players with character. We don't sign players based on character, so that's another thing we've got to get it back to. But this, so the final thing on my story about Fergie, so what he did, so he sold those players, he bought in, he played kids. So given situation, I mean, I'm pretty sure Ten Hag would want to play the likes of the Manus and the Pelestris and the whatever of this world. Play them, give them the experience, and either they're not fit and you can they're then worth twice as much, and you sell them on because they've got that first team experience. But that's what Fergie did. He just started playing the kids. I mean, I can't. None of them actually did anything. Ultimately, none of them played that much. But it's just like Fergie just used to play them. He didn't care. He's like, well, if this is as bad as it gets, play the kids. Because that's the Manchester United culture. That's the tradition. So we as fans and the club, as a club, have got to give the space for these players to come in and fail and develop. Because let's be honest, the players with the more experience they're not doing any better. So why not? So I remember Mark Robbins in particular, who was pretty good for a season or two, and then I remember we beat Liverpool 3-1. I think, it was definitely at Old Trafford. Russell Beardsmore scored. So actually, there's that night where we played the kids against Galatasaray. What would it be, 92, 93? So we were knocked out already, and Fergie's playing. I looked at it and actually hadn't twigged in my head. But Fergie just did it again. It's like, well, this is a nothing game. Let's just play the kids. Let's give them a bit of experience. And a lot of them didn't really. Certainly, as a team full of kids, they never got to play that again for another 2-3 years. But they were amazing. Anyway, I was shocked. I was like, why are we playing kids? Like, I know we can't qualify. But Fergie knew what he was doing. Fergie always knew what he was doing. Even when he didn't look like he knew what he was doing. Which is why you have to back the manager, really. You just don't know what's going on. Manchester United is not a good place to be in when we're struggling. For obvious reasons. That kind of goes without saying, but I'm having to say it anyway. And then we won easily. Like, I remember Beckham scoring. It was a bit like that, but like with players not so good. So let's just do it again. Let's play the kids. Let's give them experience. Let's play them and play them in an environment where they can't fail. Because I tell you what, us fans will not let them fail. Whatever. Actually, when the kids have come in dire situations, they've been the ones to like put their foot in and pick up yellow cards and show a bit of bottle, which is crazy if you think about it. But play the kids. Ten Hag, play the kids. Do the Fergie, do the Busby thing. It's not even the Fergie thing again. We go back to Fergie. It's like the culture is Busby. Play the kids. Give them an opportunity. It's like, if the players at the moment don't. I mean, what's the scenario? So if it was me, I'd sit the players down and go, okay, right, this isn't good enough. You either change in the next 2-3 games and you show a bit of bottle, and then what I'm going to do as a manager is I'm going to decide to just get rid of you, not play some of you who I don't want to play anymore because you're not fit for the club. You're not fit to wear the badge. And I'm just going to put kids. So that's what's going to happen. And I would do it. Now, I don't know what you'd say. Be pure all, just going to play loads of kids. I reasonably would be quite happy to do that. Depends. But those two scenarios, or something between, so the black or the white scenario, that is, replace just like whichever kid, doesn't matter, play them, or like selectively play them, which is the other option, or do something in between. That needs to happen. Because again, that's the Manchester United way. It always comes back to culture. I'm pretty sure Ten Hag does realise this by now. Um, but anyway, that's the players. Let's move on to Ten Hag. So again, you just feel sorry for him. Um, so the last season was good. The best way I would explain last season, I mean, just for clarification's sake, the season first season Ten Hag was manager, and we won the League Cup. It's like, in my mind, for what I was expecting, I mean, it wasn't perfect. Okay, given what gone before, I think 9% of it was perfect. Would be exceeded expectations, and then there were just a few things that showed up. So I think there was obviously the Brighton game, and then I can't remember who. Crystal Palace, was it Crystal Palace? Someone else. Brentford, wasn't it? Brentford away, where it was just shambolic. We just lost. It's like, here we go again. Then Ten Hag put his foot down, did something about it. The players responded, and I think we kind of flagged off towards the end of the season. We sort of ran out of steam, which is fair enough, I think, because in that situation from the previous season, we didn't have an entire squad full of players we could rely on. There was none of the. I mean, we used to call Fergie Tinkerbell because he used to change the squad. So that was part of the Fergie culture, actually. Like, change the team. I used to remember going to Old Trafford and you'd see, like, in particular, you'd see Ollie playing, starting with Dwight York. And Dwight York really wasn't playing very well at all. And York scored a hat-trick, was it? In the 6-1 Arsenal. I remember that game. So that's another thing, what games I remember. But there were other games like Aston Villa's, all the kind of the mid to higher mid-table teams used to come to Old Trafford. Quite often, pretty much every game against those sort of teams, Fergie would change 2 or 5 of the players who wouldn't get in the 11 if it was a really big league or Champions League game, and we'd just hammer them. It was part of the culture. It's because we had a good enough squad players across the whole squad. And Teddy Sheringham, when he was bought, didn't have the greatest of first seasons, and then was kind of in and out of the team. So he, again. So we had this culture where these players who weren't playing regularly didn't sulk. They were part of a team. It wasn't about playing necessarily. We just don't have that at all. We didn't have that last year, so it kind of phased out. And the players who were performing, I think, just ran out of steam a bit. Fair enough. And there were just a few dodgy games. But my biggest recollection or memory of that year, negatively, is when we're under pressure in the big games and things weren't going well, the players just turn into snowflakes, hence the big scores. I think we saw that against Bournemouth. So doing that against Manchester City and Liverpool is bad if you're a Manchester United fan, but it's understandable. There is no way you should be doing that for the likes of Bournemouth and at home. But the mentality of the players, again, I think there are reasons for that. There are several reasons. Well, I'm going to disappear for a few minutes because my computer's running out of battery, would you believe it? found cable, computer charging. So again, it goes back to the mentality and the fact being a Manchester United player is a unique thing because you're a Manchester United player. Expectations, pressure, and go back to players who have character who can deal with that. The likes of, the player above all, Roy Keane. Obviously, we got no Roy Keanes at all. Haven't since a long time ago. And you can't replace Roy Keane with Roy Keane, but you can. Roy Keane can go and move to Celtic, like he did, and then you can have the likes of Michael Carrick, who isn't Roy Keane at all, but has the character, but just a different sort of character, but enough character about himself. It seems that's a huge weakness, which hasn't really been addressed. I don't know how you begin to fix that with players who show sort of character that they showed against Bournemouth. Well, really, let's be honest, they've got no pride in themselves about anything. They just falter and fall like a pack of cards. Nothing, like turn into jelly, and it's the fear factor again. They're afraid of what might happen. Well, reasonably, given their scenario in professional footballers, and they had a bit of character, a bit of oomph about themselves, I don't know why they should be afraid. I mean, most people, I think, would say, well, the fear is criticism, obviously, but you're going to get criticised anyway. You know that as a Manchester United player. Manchester United players know when they lose, they're going to get criticised. More so in the Fergie years. Why? Because Manchester United wouldn't put in performances like it's typical nowadays. So when they did, it was a blue moon. Everyone knew it was blue moon, so everyone made hay while the sun shone for them, because we didn't have very many dark days. I mean, going back to my memories of actually being at Old Trafford, I don't have very many memories. I remember watching a Liverpool game at home where they just couldn't even beat us, let alone get anywhere near to the league, and we lost for the first time. It was like, let's not go watch a Liverpool match again, was my feeling. But that was terrible. West Ham in the Cup, where Paolo Di Canio scored the winner late on. Teddy Sheringham missed an open goal. So Bartes did the hand thing for the offside, and then Di Canio didn't buy it and scored. But that was a poor performance. Dynamo Kiev and even PSV in Champions League, those were poor performance. So even in the Fergie years, you'd have poor performances, but would still, we'd have the odd couple of really bad games and lose 1-0, very rarely. We'd have bad games where we weren't really performing, where none of the players were performing to the ability, but as a team, got through those, stuck together, with a bit of luck. Sometimes, you always need a bit of luck, but often not, just team mentality and 1-1-0. But then again, what is the de facto thing about a team that is successful? It's like when they're not playing well, and those individuals are in the team who usually play well, aren't playing to their average standard, then it's below that, they still manage to claw out a 1-0, even the 2-0 times. And then there were lots of games where it was just one or two players playing outstandingly, playing above their ability, doing their thing, and we won the game. Most of the time, everyone just played how they usually played, and we just won easy. But there's a worrying thing where we go a goal down, and you're like, when I used to be a match day going fan, it wasn't a problem. I remember particularly not playing well. So this is one of the games that stands out. Valencia, when we kind of dominated that, there was really nothing about them. Um, um, we we dominated the first half, but kind of average performance, and we only came in one goal up, and you were like, should we have scored more goals? Probably, but I think we'll be alright. And then I think it was like midway through the second half, they suddenly just scored out of nowhere and hadn't really played an ounce of, haven't played one bit of football before that. And then the team were like, okay, right, okay, we're kind of in trouble here. Something shifted in the team. They started to pass the ball around a lot more progressively and a lot more actively in the way Manchester United played. And eventually they scored. It's like the 75th minute, I think. And then just continued that and then scored again sort of 5-10 minutes later, and were like, okay, we're 3-1 up now, we can relax. Did the typical thing where they weren't changing the way they were playing, they were just like, did it very, very comfortably. Just Manchester United teams in recent years, they lose a goal and you're like, there's no way that's going to happen. No way that's going to happen at all. We're either going to fluke. So I think this season, no performance whatsoever. We just seem to be, when we're getting points, getting them by luck. It is what it is. But that's the state of this Manchester United team. So Ten Hag, obviously he's got to, if I'm speaking to Eric, you've got to fix this all. We're behind you. Do whatever you think should happen to fix the issue, and we're behind you. Ten Hag's got to be given his time. But the players at the moment are completely throwing him under the bus from one week to the next. I remember when we played in the Champions League, when every season this is, where you had 2 group phases, a lot of games. So basically 2 games a week for 3/4 of the season. The players just don't seem to be capable of putting in a decent performance 2 games in a row. They just don't have no consistency whatsoever. It's like everyone's saying, we don't really need to come in. You never know which Manchester United team is going to turn up. But it's ridiculous. If we want to be playing Champions League every week, it's another whole bunch of difficult games. And under pressure, even if you're not playing teams that necessarily don't think you should be getting 3 points against. Which we aren't anyway. The Champions League campaign this season has been a complete disaster, but it's been, oddly, we're like a completely different team who can actually score a few goals, but just claps. I think there's been a lot of bad luck in the Champions League, but okay, you take that and then you make your own luck, and then you wouldn't be bottom of the Champions League table with 1 game to go with 3 points. You would have 6 or 7. So yeah, bad luck, but some of those performances have been diabolical, and for different reasons. That's the odd thing. Explain that, you can't. Maybe you could say Europe, but no. It's a whole different thing, a whole different mentality, and that's the only thing you think. So with the flakiness of the Manchester United team at the moment, the different things are getting exposed, and it's different fears playing. But yeah, clearly goal difference in the league, not enough goals. Just trying to think off the top of my head what are some of the other problems this season. No one's scoring anything. McTominay's top goal scorer. Yeah, just lots and lots of problems. We're pretty flaky in the league, really, aren't we? Only winning 1-0s, 2-1s. It's not comfortable at all. There's that 3-0 game. I can't remember who we played, but we won 3-0. That's the only comfortable game. We seem quite lucky when we've got wins. And then there's a difference between wins, really, and losses. Wins very fluky, very streaky, very lucky. Losses not so, generally speaking. And then a few really bad performances in that. But we've got a real problem, as I said, when we go one behind. In Europe, we don't seem to have those problems scoring, which is weird. Just pausing and thinking. Bad luck. Rashford again sent off, undeserved. Having said that, we can certainly defend those when we've been 2 goals up a lot better. We haven't. Why not? So different elements of the poorness of the poor performances, or the performances when we haven't got results. And the good thing is the same. It's a bit Jekyll and Hyde. But the expectation is if you want to be playing Champions League, that's what you got to get used to. Wednesday weekend. And against difficult teams, it's not Europa League where you can just turn up and play half the team differently and expect to get a result, and then maybe once or twice don't. It's not like that. I mean, Europa League isn't easy, don't get me wrong, but it's only becomes difficult in the final stages when you're playing against good teams and teams in form. Maybe we're treating the whole thing a bit like the Europa League. We can just turn up and not really make the effort and do enough and get a result. A 3-1 or a 2-1 even, or a 2-0 with a bad performance, it's like you get a few moans from the press and a few bad reviews, and you get a few fans like me moaning, potentially more fans not like me moaning, because we understand the score in the Europa League. But we're treating the league and the Champions League like that somewhat, particularly the league, and it's not on. So Ten Hag's got a real problem with the flakiness of the team, which he really can't do anything about, can he? Let's be honest. It's like there's no character in the team when we go 1-0 down. When we go 1-0 down, you expect us to lose, and if we don't, we're just fluky. It's just a complete fluke. And that's the difference between now and before. It's actually, we're sitting sick from top rather than sick from bottom because of luck, no other reason. Maybe luck's keeping Ten Hag in his job. I don't know. Overall, I just feel sorry for him because the players are throwing him under the bus. Just a few things. I mean, there's nothing different than what I said about the team applies to Ten Hag, but Ten Hag's obviously got to build it, but he can't deliver it because he's not on the pitch. I feel sorry for him. I said that quite a lot of times. I've got to believe he knows what he should be doing and is trying to do it, and the players aren't responding. I mean, the one problem that actually bugs me more than anything else is dressing room leagues. Not acceptable. United players, not acceptable anything like that. Don't care what happens after that. You're not a Man United player if you're doing that. It's bad enough in Ollie's last year, but we're not having that again. Not acceptable. And you've got to say, what can Ten Hag do in that situation? Like, we've had players like, I mean, Ronaldo's coming in, whatever. I don't really want to criticise Ronaldo because he's a legend of the club, but somewhat spat his dummy out. Okay, Ten Hag decided to therefore react a certain way, and therefore, whatever happened, he moved on. Acceptable on all fronts in some ways, but not by others. Certainly, and then you got players like Pogba. I mean, you can count the really good games he had for Man United on your hand. Just a waste of talent. Not enough in him, which is ironic because judging by his social profiles, you'd say they're the opposite. To actually be a Manchester United player, to perform on the big stage, but it was there for him and he did nothing. The whole is the situation with Mason Greenwood, the whole what's the whole Jadon Sancho thing, and now a kind of subplot of not the same thing, but like Marcus Rashford, why is he not making the effort? Why is he not performing? What's going on? Ten Hag shouldn't have to put up with the same problems continuously in this vein, and there's just too many of them. The players just grow up. Grow up. You're professional footballers. Take pride in yourself. Said that several times. But you're playing for Manchester United. Act more. Our expectation on you as fans is not to act like you're professional footballers and a professional manager. Act like you are actually playing for Manchester United. Marcus Rashford, you're not acting like you're playing for Manchester United. That's a big concern, because as I've said several times, you're the one that should understand that. So you got to feel sorry for Ten Hag in that situation. What can he do? Well, he can do what he done with Sancho, which is to say, right, fine, off. But it also creates massive problems down the line when you've got a player who from your squad who is not actually in your squad can't play, and then the other players aren't performing. I mean, Jadon Sancho, if he would be listening, would be like, Jadon Sancho, sort yourself out. You either want to play, you don't. Okay? If you've got any feeling for us fans whatsoever, for Manchester United or for Manchester United fans, in any combination, particularly as a fan, for us fans, just bite your pride, and for us, just bite it, say you're sorry, do whatever Ten Hag wants. Because quite frankly, we need you. And if you play and you're no better than the others, then we've lost nothing. So for us, I could do with a coffee. So I think Ten Hag's actual problems are severalfold. One is he knows how he wants to play, but he knows he's slightly limited with what he wants to do. So I think from the off, Ten Hag came in, he saw pre-season training last season, looked okay. He wanted to do a particular thing, play a particular way, tried it, didn't work. Okay, he adjusted. At the end, successful season. Now, he could do that, or he could just be stubborn. I think, actually, he should be stubborn. It's for one clear, simple reason, I think, in my mind, and a couple of games would reference this. So let's talk about what I think he should be doing. So we could have just continued like last season and him not do what he actually wants to do, which is to play a very attacking game, which is a game of press. Okay. So last season, first two games went badly. He realised he couldn't continue with that. Changed it, rescued it, and has gone back to it. So he could just do the same. But this is the thing. But because all the best teams in the Premier League will play that, and one of the teams who plays that, and the team that plays that the best, is going to win the league. So if we're not going to do that, we're never going to win the league. So looking long term, okay, and this is part of the issue of everything we're talking about. It's like, and Fergie did the same long term. This is the goal. Don't really care too much about how badly we screw the whole thing up, medium or short term, as long as the long term goal is getting there. So when Ten Hag says he's happy, I think that's what he's talking about, getting to that goal. So why is he happier than he was last season given performance? Because we're much closer to actually playing the way he wants, which we couldn't play last season. I think partly it's because he's bought the players he thinks can play that way. So again, not regurgitating everything that's out of the team, but some of the issues with the team means it's not going to work. We're not going to be challenging for the league for a good, certainly not this season. I don't think next season, 2-3 years. But without persisting, we're never going to win the league anyway, in my mind. It's not about finishing second. It's about we're either winning the league, and if we're not winning the league, we're qualifying for the Champions League. Now, in my mind, that was the issue last season, why Ten Hag switched. In my mind, the players need to be more progressive and should be further on. Now, because Ten Hag's been there a year, they should know what he wants. They should know what he wants to play. They should have far more experience, time-wise, of trying to play like he wants to play than they had at the beginning of last season. But I think Ten Hag in his own mind probably realised if he just kept with that mentality, we weren't going to qualify for the Champions League. It was going to be a disaster. It was going to turn into Ranić again. When Ollie got sacked, it's just like wasn't going to work at all. So now a year on, the players, no excuse for the players, play the way Ten Hag wants. Just do it successfully. I think that's the issue. So if I go back to some previous games last season, so before we do that, have I actually finished saying what I want to say? So at the moment, we've got two issues. When we try and do it, we're not doing it very well. So you could say again, why not stop doing that and go back? Because we're not going to get any better if we go back. We're just going in this continual circle again, but with this singular issue. So Ten Hag persisting in that, I think, is the right thing to do for the long term, if not, certainly not the short term. But the players at the moment can't play, and there are several issues, but it goes back to what they've shown us before with other issues, the mentality. It's just snowflake. There's no fight about them. They're nervous or anxious. They play with fear. They don't play with any fear. They've got to learn to play in that system and to play with the press, because that's what every good team. I remember the Champions League final against Barcelona, particularly the first one, where we got nowhere near winning that Champions League final. Why? Because of Barcelona's press, because of Guardiola's tactics, and that was years ago. And this is the problem with these big losses to Manchester City and to Liverpool in the league last season, is we try and play that way. We're playing with fear. When it starts to go badly, we just turn into snowflakes. That's the problem. So it's a bit more than just the system Ten Hag wants to play. It's actually having the courage to play it instead of the fear when playing it. But as Ten Hag said every time he was interviewed, he's like, I give the players instructions, they don't do what I've got to say. They don't do what I'm saying. They've got to learn. And the thing you've got to learn is to do what I say, and they're not doing it. And it's still the same, and that's the one thing that needs to change. And the players have just got to switch off outside interference. Because we're not getting anywhere towards winning a league or getting anywhere deeper into Champions League stages unless we get this fixed. So the issue is to stick with it and keep it fixed. So when a lot of proper supporters begin criticising this, I understand why, but actually I think he needs to persist. And the players who don't want to perform in that system, we just need to get rid of them and need to bring players in. But it's difficult to bring players in a system where you're bringing 3 or 4 players in, and the players that are previously, the players who are already at the club, not the new players, play with fear when they're playing that system. I mean, it's not going to fix the situation. So you've got to feel for the likes of Anana, Amrabat, Mason Mount, particularly Højlund. I mean, poor Højlund gets no service whatsoever. Just has to keep going. I mean, if I was Ten Hag, I'd be tearing my hair out thinking, I've brought this player in to do... He's young, he's inexperienced and hasn't played the stage. What helps he get from the other players? Nothing. I mean, again, I think it shows our class as United fans, and that we're not even interested in being classy or not being classy. It's just about being United fan and having that culture. It's like, don't really care about Magnus Hoyland's performances, given the situation he's in, his age, his lack of experience, the fact we brought him in, he's now playing. As long as he's putting the effort in, and he is, he's one of the players you can't. So we're just sticking with him. We don't care, because we believe in the culture as much as we believe in the culture, which is why we're doing it in the first place. So if we stick with it, we believe this is going to solve the problem. It's just the other players who don't that are the issue. Feel for Anana somewhat. So let's deal with Anana. So every United player who's come in has struggled except Van der Sar. So who have we had? Schmeichel came in, made a few gaffes in his first season. So let's give Onana the benefit of the doubt. It's not particularly shown to me that he... I mean, obviously he was brought in to fix the distribution issues with De Gea. I mean, De Gea, that's a joke. He can't find himself a club. What is that about? Every mid-table club across Europe should want to sign him. Because he's much better than the goalkeeper they've currently got at the moment, who can't play that passing game, that pressing passing game from defence out, which Anana was brought in to solve. So let's give him time, because we gave all the other goalkeepers time. I mean, loads of failures. Barthez, big failure in the end. I quite like Barthez when he played. It's difficult to answer some questions about why that didn't work, and just why a specific thing didn't work. He was too short, got found out in Europe. We never did anything good in Europe with Barthez in goal. Okay, not his fault particularly. Maybe Fergie shouldn't have signed him. But certainly character. France, experience, World Cups, European Cups, a winner. Right character, basically. Just didn't work out. So Schmeichel quit after Champions League final. Barthez eventually... Bosnich, failure. Taibbi, failure. Taibbi... Google the Massimo Taibbi. The Southampton game when he got his feet stuck. Again, character. Did not have the character to survive that moment. Sunk. And again, this is the problem. When there are moments, every time the players in the squad, pretty much 95% of them are showing when character's needed, they basically stink like a snowflake. Again, I'm just repeating myself, but it's blatantly obvious that most of them haven't got the character to deal with this situation at all. Get rid of them. Andy Gorham came in, played a couple of games. Yeah, it doesn't really count. Big crisis with the goalkeeper. So we're still winning leagues without a decent goalkeeper, which is funny, criticising Anana. So it's not all about the goalkeeper, it's the players you've got in front of you. Tim Howard came in. Again, didn't have the character, had the ability. Roy, can't remember his name. Sorry, Roy. The other Roy, not Roy Keane, the Northern Irish goalkeeper. So was the backup to Tim Howard, and then when Tim Howard wasn't playing so well, was making some clangers. I remember that free kick, which, again, some of those things were so annoying back then. And now we're annoyed by other things. Like Tim Howard didn't save a free kick and we got knocked out of Europe when we shouldn't have. Just that one mistake. So I think it palmed it away. It wasn't the greatest, but nerviness, whatever. I mean, most of you probably don't even know what I'm talking about. Didn't catch the ball, follow up, they score. We're knocked out of Europe because we think we needed to win that game. It's a character again. Roy, whatever his name is. Sorry, Roy. but was back up to Tim Howard, and then this is what I was going to say. Tim Howard wasn't performing, so they were sort of in and out. They both played that cup final against Millwall, was it? When they both played the half, because they played about roughly equal games in that season. Not Solution. Van der Sar, perfect. Since Van der Sar, I mean, who have the goalkeepers been? Oh yeah, so I mean, ironically, um, um, I've forgotten his name. De Gea. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? De Gea came in, constant. So ironically, we did have that goalkeeper problem fixed. I think, obviously, wider discussion we won't go into. In the last few years, seasons of De Gea's career at United, just like making too many clangers, but was pretty much reliable. So actually, Onana's almost in an impossible situation. With the way the team are playing, the lack of character, in a completely impossible situation. So let's just give Onana the benefit of the doubt. If the players in front of him, I think, in my mind, yes, he can be criticised somewhat. I look at his playing and his mistakes and think it's not as assured as he needs to be. But given time, the hope is that will fix itself. If that doesn't, we'll have to go out and buy another goalkeeper. That's as black or white as that. So let's give him the time. So, Onana is quite a character, and I think we're beginning to see some of the negative points of that. But if we stick with him, we'll see the positive. Because the same was true with Schmeichel. Schmeichel's mistakes came out of his character and his basic method of goalkeeping. Which was basically to smother anyone and anything that came near his goal, including most of the time the central defenders. Steve Bruce and Peter Schmeichel. Steve Bruce and Gary Pallister. Like, get them in the pub with Peter Schmeichel. Get them a little bit drunk and then film the result of them telling stories. That would be quite a show, I think. Certainly for us United fans. So let's just stick with that. So Onana, of course, was... I mean, it goes back to this, should Ten Hag, which is why we're talking about, really to quit with this system that he wants to play. Well, we bought Onana for the system, so let's stick with Onana would be part of the argument. Anyway, apart from the other reasons I've given to stick with Onana. But it's not really working, is it? Because the other players aren't contributing. So the system is to press and be pressed and be very quite attacking, be able to, pass all the way through that. So I think that the issue last season is whenever they tried to do that, it was a complete disaster. So we're obviously better at it. So again, we got to stick with it. I mean, it boils down to this, which I've said before, but I think it's worth repeating if we haven't quite got it. It's like, that's the way City and Liverpool play, and that's where they get success from. If we want to be better than them, we have to play somewhat a similar sort of game. So I think there were two games which underlined. So one was the FA Cup final last year, and one was the Europa League final with Oli the year before, which completely, if you watch those games, think about those games, and actually if United players and the training and the management system, whatever, did that, sat down with the players and watched it and go, these are the problems we need to fix. I think these are still the two problems we need to fix. So the City game, it's like we never had a chance in that FA Cup final because the City's press just didn't have the ball. So whenever De Gea got the ball, City got it back. So I think if I remember just experiencing that and we'll go, right, De Gea needs to go, whatever. Even for any other reason, he shouldn't be going, needs to go, because we won't win an FA Cup final, we won't beat City if they play like that. There's just no way. So we need a goalkeeper like Anana who can pass the ball like that. So progression in a way. We got the player who we want who can play like that. All things considered. Whether he will or not is another matter, but De Gea never was going to play like that in future. I mean, again, I'm shocked he can't get in the team because, like, we're talking about the best teams in Europe here, who've won now European Cups. So De Gea's never going to be in the best goalkeepers in the world, but he's still class, experienced goalkeeper who can just... De Gea, in my mind, I mean, it's another subject. If he played for an Aston Villa or a Brighton or a Everton even, or any of the other clubs in the Premier League, or in... I'm not saying I wouldn't want him because I want him playing against United, but he could do that in Spain, he could do that in Italy. So why hasn't been picked up by one club? No idea. That's just lunacy for me. Obviously, there's a stigma attached to you when you play for Manchester United and you foul. Again, goes to everything we've been talking about, which is why we need players of character in the first place, because this is going to happen time and time again. So anyway, back to that. So that's one match. So now we've got the players we can potentially win in the future from the goalkeeper. We just need other players now who can play in that system. I'll talk about the system. The other is the Villarreal defeat. This is a problem with Southampton. This is Manchester United's big problem. Teams 2-3 years ago worked out. Ten Hag came in last season and changed this all. Now it seems to have gone back. So what's the issue? They realised, like Villarreal, they can just sit back. I mean, I've been meaning to replay the Villarreal game just to. I mean, obviously I watched it. Just to like pick up some technical, tactical bits. But literally, for that entire game, Villarreal played, I think, 60, 70 minutes with 10 men behind the ball, and the rest of it with practically 11. All the forward just sitting in front of the 10, not playing forward. So I think that season was like last season to some degree, but we weren't playing as well. At points we were playing some games well, but the fatigue issue, so fatigue came into it, but we just couldn't break teams down. And our game was just so slow, just like pass. And it's the element of international football where you get a 0-0 in a World Cup. It's like, well, actually, if one of the teams just passed the ball a bit more incisively and aggressively and quickly, someone would score a goal. There's still a big issue about breaking down teams. And we have it now, which is why we can't score goals. And actually, when Manchester United in the recent years haven't been playing well, everyone realises that, so that's why they do it. So the problem ends up creating a problem in itself. It just comes back on itself. So we need to sort out an aggressive system. And I think the press would be it, really. At least part the solution, if not most of it. So continue with this pressing game. Just the players by now, in my mind, should be experienced enough trying it out to do it more successfully, and they're not for whatever reason. So that blame would lay with the players. Yeah. So couldn't break that down. Couldn't break Man City's press. So that's the two things I think we need to work on. Really, skill-wise, technically, and obviously a team. So as a team, we need to all go. And really, I think that was the reason Ronaldo went, because it's like, well, whatever could have happened with whatever, but eventually we're going to have to play a system where the player who plays in Ronaldo's position before he left was going to have to press, and that's just not Ronaldo's game. Fair enough. I mean, in my mind, that could have all been dealt with amicably by both parties, and I think Ronaldo could have been a bit more grown up about it. But like, let's give him the benefit of the doubt because he is one of our greatest ever players. He's a legend of not just football, but for us, he's a legend of Manchester United. So, I mean, if you saw Ronaldo in those years, before he left, he's like basically won games on his own. So credit where credit's actually due. I don't think he was expecting the nonsense that he walked into. Again, what did he particularly criticise? The fact that Glazers don't give a flying whatever about whatever. Got no emotion towards our football club at all. Absent fathers. That's what they are. Don't be an absent father. If you're a father, invest in your kids. Or if you own a football club, that's the greatest football club in the world, invest in it. It's like, makes perfect sense. Anyway, I'm ranting again, but this is a bed rant. So, yeah, those are the two things. So, the particular problem, actually, if you analyse it, is I can't think of what it exactly is. So, Ten Hag wants to play this pressing system, which is I think it's 3-2 when we don't have the ball, and 3-1 2-4 or 3-1 3-3 or 3-1 1-6 when we do. So that there are particular issues with that system, and this has been documented by different people at different points for a long time. Even the beginning of the season, this was again documented. This is the way we're playing in pre-seasons. So clearly, this is the way Ten Hag wants to play. To pray. Well, he should be praying. He wants to play, and I think about prayer way too much. Hence a slip of the tongue. I should be thinking about playing more, shouldn't I? Need to pick up my guitar a bit more. That's the way Ten Hag wants to play. We've said this is the way we compete. Ultimately, got no choice really, and we've seen that this is the way he wants to play. Now, some of the time the players are really lousy at playing it and don't really play it at all very well. And when they do and they stick with it, they just crumble like snowflakes. That's the problem. Technically, the problem is this. You need to be brave playing this. You have to be 100% accurate. And every team that's played this has made mistakes. Goalkeepers have made mistakes. Central defenders have made mistakes. And it's caused goals and it's called lack of results. Now, if there's a Manchester United player actually listen to that, do you know what I'd say to that? We do not care. Because every team that's won, Barcelona, Liverpool, City, have made those mistakes. The issue is not making those mistakes and costing that result. The issue is, if that's the negative and the positive is, in other games when you don't make the mistakes, you win, and quite easily, then clearly, just statistically and performance and points-wise talking, that's a benefit. So that needs to be stuck with. And the players just need to get better at it, and they're certainly better than last year, because the likes of Harry Maguire were just appalling at it. Again, I think the issue partly is stupid balls, like Bruno's ball for that goal in Bournemouth, stupid ball, shouldn't have played it. McTominay's effort, not good enough. So they just need to play it a lot better, but you don't get better at that experience. So for the Manchester United players, just play with no fear, you know. It kind of annoys me. There's a portion of the Old Trafford crowd we've had for years which just do not understand at all, and will just get on the players' backs about these kind of things. Because we need to stick with this. So that's the issue. Play with no fear. You've got to be accurate, incisive, and pass the ball with pace, and keep the ball instead of hoofing it. Onana's got the option of hoofing it accurately, which De Gea never had. So that's one element of that's bow to our team now we didn't have last year. So literally, once Onana's got the ball, probably every player in the team can expect to receive the ball, can move into a position to, in space, to receive the ball. If they all move into a situation where they can receive the ball, guess what? One of them's going to have space to receive the ball, and it's up to an honour to spot that person and to pass it. I think he has the game for that. And as shown in the past, he can have the game for that. The issue is, again, whether he's got the character, the fearlessness to play like that, and in those situations for Manchester United in the big pressure moments. Let's just presume he has. So once we've got into an attack, everyone bombs it up the flanks, and it's a very aggressive game of football. So it's pacey counter-attack. When it's pacey and it's counter-attack, it kind of works somewhat okay at the moment. It's when we've got a team who comes and they park the bus and they're just counter-attacking. They just want to play counter-attacking football. So on the counter-attack, we are very open. We don't seem to play that pressing game of football well enough to keep the ball, and that's the issue. But again, you look at City, you look at Liverpool, and the way they've been trained by Klopp and Guardiola, they don't lose the ball. So that's obviously what we have to do. We have to find a way of breaking down the teams that come to Old Trafford, part of the bus. Not wanting to knock on and bang on about the same things, but whenever I went to Old Trafford and watched, the greatest teams we ever had, everyone came apart of the bus. No one wanted to really come and play attacking football. There were only one or two teams that dared do that. Everyone part of the bus. Guess what? The likes of... we had the most amazing midfield, didn't we? Of Keane, Scholes and Giggs and Beckham. And we had enough players to come on and change the game when that wasn't working out. Which never really was needed anyway. But then you had to break teams down with that midfield and with the attacking players we have. So we just got to learn to do it again. The current United team seems to have problems with this, but that team obviously didn't. Partly because they're much better players. But again, character fights, playing a system, and it is a different system. So what seems to be happening is both fullbacks are getting caught out, which I find it strange because it should be a 3, not a 2. It seems we're pushing too much. I don't know, Ten Hag would have to talk about this and we'd have to find out exactly what's going on. Just think off the top of my head. So it always seems to be 3 and 1. Sometimes 3 and 2. Sometimes 3, 1, 1. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So one of the fullbacks tucks in. But it seems to me part of the problem with what we're doing at the moment is the fullbacks bombing out gets exposed and the goal comes through that side. Now that's tactical. That's from the opposition picking up. However that's happening on whatever we need to do, that for me seems to be from the opposition manager analysing how the way United play and picking that's one of the key vulnerabilities. Because it's one of the key vulnerabilities, that's what they're exposing. So we've got to then, as a team and the management and training, watch how that vulnerability is being exposed and then basically patch it up so it's not a plaster on the scab, so to speak. But find a way to actually play against that positively and tweak that whole system again. And really, for me, that's what the whole technical side of football is all about. And it's about having players that are is have a management system. So let's trust the management system. We don't know if it's true or not. Let's just trust Ten Hag. Um, um, but we don't seem to have the players that can play with that with any confidence. Again, fear. Just play it with fear. I mean, let's be honest. Reguilon's coming in from Spurs. Um, as cover for sure. And to be honest, has most of his performance, from what I can see, quite shocking. It's just not the player. I mean, fair enough. Let's just in the future assume Reguilon's not going to be there. We're possibly going to buy someone else. I mean, there's lots of questions to be made about players playing where and what Ten Hag's trying to do. But let's give Ten Hag credit, and we're persisting with this system for all the reasons I've said, which I don't think anyone could deny. But I think basically at the end of the day, whether whatever I said is an issue or not, the players just can't seem to play it. So the problem is with the players actually playing it on the pitch. And obviously Ten Hag trains them, yes, sends them out, and it's up to them to perform it. Certainly from things Ten Hag said, like they just turn into snowflakes. I mean, snowflake is just a perfect definition of a lot of our players when they're not turning up and playing. And then when they're not playing well, they're not putting in enough effort. So with things like the Newcastle game, a lot of talk of effort, not running around enough, and then recently with Bournemouth, the opposite. So it's like, logically, how do you solve that? You can't criticise them for both. But they just don't seem to be able to do the right thing in the right time. I mean, to me, it's simple. It's like, trust what Ten Hag's doing and trust the system. Actually, whether the system needs tweaking or not is up to Ten Hag. But at the moment, the players can't play it. So once we understand, and Ten Hag understands, and the players actually understand, that they're actually playing it how they're coached to play it, and they're playing it properly, and it's still not working, then the only thing we've got to do is to get to that point. And I think that's the next key point we need to get to, and Manchester United need to get to. So, bedtime rant for more than 2 hours. Some of the other things. So what are the 5 things? So players playing, manager managing correctly, right tactics, and he's setting up the team correctly, tactically, playing the type of brand of football he wants to do. The culture, and the way the club's run by the business people and the owners. So when Manchester United was successful, it's because of the symbiosis between all 5 parts of those things. So the lack of success, the failure in the football club, is because there's no symbiosis whatsoever with any of those things, and that's why we're failing. So my question would actually be about how we get that symbiosis. So one, the Glazers have got to go. That would solve, to me, at least 25%, if not 50% of the problem. The other 50 would be the players. Then you've got symbiosis, and this is where you really understand why the Glazers need to go, is because the Glazers obviously are just the owners. They don't run the football club, but they're in charge of the people that do, and in charge of it's the same as the football side, as leading and instigating, and what's the word I used? I can't remember. Assimilating, something like that. One of my favourite words. I can't believe I've forgotten it. Facilitating, that's it. So the Glazers need to facilitate the culture that runs the football club in the right way, and they haven't. They've got completely the wrong people in the football club running the football club. Those people then with the Glazers on the footballing side have got people in who can't run the footballing side of the business side of the football club. Then those people haven't got in. So it's top down. So two key people for top down. So it's not the players, it's not anyone, it's the Glazers and Ten Hag. So the Glazers have come in and just got the whole thing totally wrong. I mean, I've listened to probably about at least a dozen, probably maybe that's an exaggeration, post Bournemouth criticisms by all sorts of different people, fans, ex-players, pundits, and they're all saying the same thing. But one interesting thing Phil Neville actually said was when he came with Moyes into that, so he was part of that, it's like there was nothing set up in the club. It's all gone. I'm like, how can that be? How can that be? Well, we know the reasons why, really. So basically, the criticism Phil Neville was like, the recruitment side, it was just like all completely wrong. It wasn't even done how other football clubs do it. In terms of how other clubs do it well, there was just nothing in place. Nothing. No understanding that it wasn't even in place would be my assimilation of what Phil Neville was saying, because they would have fixed it years ago and haven't. They've only started fixing it in the last couple of years. And what now? We've got to turn over people. And have we got the right people in? Have we got any of the right people in any of the right places on any of the non-footballing side of the business, of the football club? Not just the business, because obviously it's not business, but it needs to be run like a business, but as a football club, if you understand what I'm saying. And the Glazers have really shown no interest in running it. They've got no clue whatsoever in any of that stuff. And they've been found out. So Glazers, you've just got to go. Because you're like damaging your own investment now. That's the way you see it. There's only one way now, down the plug hole. The football club's not going to gain any more value till it gets rid of you and it can actually start winning things. Because there's going to be no symbiosis, because you've trashed the whole non-footballing side of the football club. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's pretty much gormless what the Glazers has done. I mean, they do it with an arrogance and a swagger as well, which belies belief. But hey-ho. So there's no one in place. So what's the issue? So the issue is when Fergie came, success, developed, but everything came from Fergie. So we need another guy who's going to lead the football club like that. That's going to be allowed to lead the football club like that. But the question is that ever going to work anymore? And the other question is anyone going to ever in the right mind going to allow someone to do that? Because it's a big, big gamble. Because what you understand with Fergie, having watched those years, is like the whole kind of non-pitch side of football developed. And there was just so many people that you need to be employed in a football club now, in so many different places, fulfilling so many roles, that one man can't do it. So it's about the footballing side or the non-football side, which the Glazers are in charge of, bringing the right people in to facilitate that. So there's all this stuff of a takeover. That's just a joke. That's so much a joke. It just shows up everything else that about what the Glazers are, what they represent, who they are. So they couldn't run a drinking session in a brewery. They probably could actually, but not when it comes to football. Completely out of their depth, completely pointless. The Glazers are pointless as football owners. So that needs to be put in place. So it wouldn't surprise me that's happened. As a United fan, when Fergie left, I would expect us to not be successful for a couple of seasons at least, given that, and that needed time for that to be replaced with a new system which wasn't the same. So that's my expectation as a proper fan. So my problem with that is no one who's been brought in has really recognised that at all, even as a problem. Yeah, Phil Neville's come in, he's saying, I came in with David Moyes' whole footballing management team, and that was straight away a problem. So people in the club have recognised it's a problem, when the people inside the club who should have recognised it's a problem didn't recognise the problem and weren't listening to the people that did recognise it was a problem. Okay, big, massive problems, even bigger than the team now, potentially. So it's about recognising that. But this is the thing, now it's recognised. Have they brought the right people in? No, they haven't. It's like, to me, it's getting worse, not better. And there's so many areas of Manchester United Football Club where we can't compete with other football clubs. So one is owners, one is the way the business people run the club as a football club, because no one seems to actually understand it's a football club, and the players. So symbiosis with those 5 things. Well, 3 of them are off. And then the 4th one, culture. It's not going to happen, is it? Not at Manchester United. So that's why I feel sorry for Ten Hag, and that's why I feel sorry for the other managers. So if you go back to Mourinho became such a whinge bag, didn't he? At the time, looking back now, like, he was totally justified. And you can see how frustrated he was getting, but now you understand why. Because of all this stuff was going on back then, and he recognised it, and he was ranting and raving about it. And no one took a blind bit of attention to him. What did they do? They got rid of him, particularly when he made too much noise. Jose, if you're listening, you were right, man. Dead on right. Now, I don't think Jose is a particular right fit culturally for Manchester United. But then again, it's not his job to hire him. Whether it could have worked, I mean, other people have said, and I've got my doubts, I mean, maybe it could have worked or worked up to a point. But certainly should have been a lot better with Jose. So you've got players like Paul Pogba issues, and let's be honest, Jose was particularly on the footballing side, but the players pretty critical and pretty disciplined. He got that right. Pogba should have been kicked out of the club straight away. It should be like, this isn't a Manchester United player, that's not culturally how we behave as players, this is not acceptable. Perp your contract, sell him, on loan, whatever, get him out of the football club. So that's one thing. So what is it Jose actually said? Like, particularly with winning titles, his probably biggest achievement was finishing second with that team in that situation. And that says everything about the football club that is Manchester United Football Club, outside just the small bracket within the actual manager, the coaching staff and the players, the non-footballing side of the football, which is still football. Not a clue, any of them. And you can see by the CEOs. So, let me put my microphone down. So we never had great CEOs, really. Actually, I don't need to put it down. Got a list of directors here. Glazier. Malcolm Glazier. Brian Glazier, Joel Glazier, Avram Glazier. Anyone who knows who Brian Glazier actually is? Does he make records? No, that's Adams. So who is it? So never had any good CEOs, really. I've set one, the amazing guy that stands out, if I can. Oh, it's just too many people with too many names. my time. Frederick Attock. Greg Dyke was director at Manchester United. I remember those years. He used to make such a fuss. I think he left because he took over. Michael Knighton, F1. Michael Knighton, briefly. Do you remember that, everyone? Arsenal, we won 4-1 in the 89-90 season. We had that Adidas hexagonal strip across thing with the tracksuits and stuff. Have I got one? Not sure I have. I think I might do. I've got some other ones if I don't have that. But the stripe, though, the Germany 1990 World Cup kit, if you go and find that, same but United colours. So Michael Knighton's announced as the new owner. Comes onto a pitch dressed in this jumper with this style and does some ball juggling. We would beat Arsenal 4-1 in the 89-90 season, which turned into a bit of a disaster. So yeah, that season, what did Fergie do? He recognised that the club weren't going to have enough, didn't have enough quality to actually win anything, no better than second. He went out, got rid of them and replaced them all. Was a complete disaster to begin with. No worse than today. Some respects better, some respects worse. But where we finished, sort of 2, 3, 4 places above relegation. In relegation most for a good portion of that season. Playing like we are now. Yeah? But this is the thing. He replaced the players and brought in the players long term could do the job. So who did he buy? He bought Paul Ince, did the job. Then obviously Paul Ince, when he was a problem, when he became part of the problem with the culture and superfluous to the mainstream dressing room culture, Fergie got rid of him. But yeah, good player for several years. Dues to Paul Ince. I mean, dues to a lot of players that got kicked out because actually the result was they were no longer Manchester United players and their career was going to be downhill from now on. So they kind of, if you look at it negatively and say, well, Fergie should have done that, well, they kind of reap what they sowed in some ways. But give them players like Paul Ince a due when they're at a club and they performed and they were part of that culture. I think there were different issues with Paul Ince on both sides, both that weren't actually problems. And some issues that were. Anyway, Paul Ince is another story. Danny Wallace from Southampton, who was this little kind of wingery forward guy who didn't really do much, so not a good signing. Neil Webb, great signing, but he did his Achilles in that season. That's part of the season why that season went wrong. So obviously he hadn't even embedded himself in football club, I think. Something like that. His appearance figures for United was like in single digits, and he did his Achilles. Really bad injury, and at the time never recovered. Who else did we sign? Gary Pallister the year before, big signing, disaster at start. So some of our best signings historically have had really hard, difficult first seasons at United. Like, we need to stop really as fans getting on their backs. So give Onana a break, give everyone a break. Partly because of what they walked into, which is a dressing room which is completely dysfunctional. I'm not sure I've said any of this nonsense about players leaking stuff to the press, division. Just get rid of them. That's what Fergie did. Get rid of them. Doesn't matter who they are. Get rid of them. And some of it, again, like Paul Ince, maybe a little bit harsh. But if there's a problem, that's the easiest way to sort it out. Get rid of them. Who else did Fergie sign? Trying to think back. So Dennis Irwin was signed around that time. One of the best servants of Manchester United Football Club, bar none. Probably at the time stayed at the club for a long time, won so much. Basically 2-3 club man, came to United quite young, came from Oldham. One of those quiet players who will just scold you, like, just get on with it and give you... If he plays a 7 out of 10, he's having a bad game. but will just tick the basic boxes of what we'd want from a Manchester United player still today that wouldn't be ticked. Can't remember who played on the other side. Gary Neville stepped up eventually. Paul Parker played quite a lot but got injured. But anyway, the point is we brought in lots of these players in the 89 to 90 season, and they almost got us relegated. But it needed doing. I think it needs doing again. So I think this is the thing that's not recognised when we discuss these things, when you've been around for the likes of some of the fans who are old and older than I am, and you go back to 70s, maybe the 70s was even worse. I mean, I can't comment, partly because, you know, I was born in that era, and yeah, I wouldn't have seen anything of any of those players, and even the early 80s players I wouldn't have seen anything of. So it's not like these aren't historical problems we've had before. Partly we should know how to deal with these. So David Gill, that we quite often get sidetracked, which means you get a 2 hour, 2.5 hour. David Gill, footballing man. So why was Manchester United so successful when Fergie left? I mean, it wasn't successful before, and the teams weren't even nowhere near as good. So that symbiosis between Gill and Fergie, perfect. Football man, understood the football, understood how to support his manager, understood what he needed to do, understand what his role was and what he needed to do to say to Fergie no, in a way that Fergie would actually understand and accept. Have we ever had that again? No. So since, so I don't know. I can't remember who he is. Ed Woodward. That's the guy. So, Glazers, so brilliant. What do? They make the man in charge of the football club, who is their man, who knows nothing about the football side, complete disaster. Just keeps him in. Can't sign anyone for fluff. People he signs, useless. Massive failing. Massive failing. So probably the thing at the top, the two things, Glaciers, the man they brought in. So you'd say, the Glaciers were at the time, but I think Gill and Fergie covered up the issues with the Glazers. So the Glazers came in, didn't need to do anything. Football was run perfectly. Could just let Gill and Edwards sort of Gill and Fergie just get on with it and run it however they wanted, and it was perfect. It was running perfectly anyway. So I think the problem you got is both leave. Woodward's brought in, he's rubbish. Arnott's been brought in and replaced since. So I can't remember who it is. One of the and Andy Minn, is it? Who said recently, I think I saw him doing something with someone, and he said he understood that Arnold was going to get fired by the Glaciers, and then approached Arnold for a comment, and he's like, it's like he looked to me with kind of weird look on his face, with his, I can't remember what he said, but like eyes bulging out of his head with kind of incomprehension. It's like, what are you talking about? And then within weeks he was fired. So that's the way the Glaciers run the football club. They don't really talk to anyone, don't really involve anyone in anything, and then they just blame them. That's the way it is. So anyway, top two reasons failings at Manchester United post Fergie: the Glazers owners, the guy they brought in, Arnold, Woodward. And so it's only post Woodward some of these issues to do with outside the Glazers and the CEO have been started to be dealt with and have been recognised as issues. Like the Glazers and Woodward never recognised anything. Big, massive problem. We wonder why the club's struggling so badly on so many different areas. Because it all adds up. Symbiosis, yeah? It's like playing football without a goalkeeper. How many goals are you going to stop? How many games are you going to play and the opposition aren't going to score? None. Just stupid, ridiculous stuff. In my mind. So before David Gill, Cuddly Pete is what we used to call him. So a bit of a too much of an executive again. Peter Kenyon did an okay job. I think he quit and went to Chelsea, did he? Like, again, leave United, your career goes downhill. But it's best to retire. Maybe that's why the Glazers don't want to go. They realise it's all downhill from now. That would be the only excuse they've got. It wouldn't have been all downhill for the rest of us if you hadn't come in the first place. Chickaboom. Yeah, alright, Peter Kenyon. A bit two-faced, if you ask me. Before that, Martin Edwards, who inherited it from his dad. His dad owned a club. Then Martin Edwards was chairman, CEO, I think, in some of the 70s, the 80s and 90s, and then tried to sell to Michael Knighton. Joke of an issue. You understand why. And then made the club PLC, made a whole bunch of issues, lots of issues with Martin Edwards and his behaviour and stuff, and like no good CEO. So, for quite a long time you've had no decent CEOs, but like I think the problem with it is not that, it's the fact that the Glazers owned and run the club with Ed Woodward. So Wikipedia, English accountant, investment banker. Chief executive of Manchester United from 2012 to 2022. 10 years he was at our football club, and what good did he do? Forget that. List the good things he did. He can't. Like, 10 years. You are joking, Glaziers. Like, this ignorance of the actual issues before actually beginning to panic and sort them out. Just, like, unbelievable. Basically, that's why I think we've got to where we've got to. So, in summation, what we're really saying, if I can say it in 5 minutes, so it's 2 hours 33. I've been banging on doing my Manchester United bed rant in bed early on a Saturday. So it's now the afternoon. I've got to go and get some lunch. So let's keep this short. So potential areas on all 5 of those. So 5 areas: the management and the management structure, the players and the playing staff, the culture, the owners, and the people that actually run the club, including the CEO, right? So let's put all the blame onto Ten Hag. Well, Ten Hag might as well be another Fergie, but he's got no backing for the other 5 areas. So how do we expect Ten Hag to pass? You could say the same with anything else, even the players. So what are the real problems? Do I need to rehash my get rid of the players? I don't think I do, but for the different reasons. Simply, primarily, point 1, get rid of all the players who are proving a problem with the culture in the dressing room. That's been a problem for 3 or 4 years now. Hasn't been solved. Don't care who they are. As a sub-issue of that, point 2, maybe point 10 or whatever. Let's move it further down the list, but would be the players' attitude on the pitch. Again, change some of the players, but that's not as important as the culture. Because you fix the culture, you fix the attitude on the pitch. 2, get rid of the Glaciers. 3, put people who actually can run the football club properly in place. That has yet to happen. Hopefully this new investment comes in from, what's his name? The Ineos guy, Jim Mr. Ineos. Brings in a brilliant guy, Dave Brailsford, who has some of the greatest successes in British sport, and they were able to fix the non-footballing side to run it properly as a sporting body, as a footballing body. Get back to that. Now, if I was those people, I would run a mile at the moment. I would laugh at the Glazers and say to them, haha, after this, do you think I still want to invest? No. And when the Glazers go, oh, come on, please, pretty please invest in a football club and give us billions of dollars or money so we can go and ruin some other sporting institution, because we've already done that to the Kansas... No, not the Kansas City Chiefs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which they have, by the way. They haven't... They've This isn't the first time. And I would say back to, right, okay, let's have a discussion. You need to bring your demands of what you want down, because I am going to have to do a hell of a lot of work after I paid you these billions that you want to fix the problems that you caused. Actually, because you caused them, your football club's not worth as much as you think. Anyway, this is as good as it gets, the Glazers being able to basically sell off the club for whatever they get for this price that they're prepared to pay. So let's hope it goes through, because that's an improvement on that side. We all can see that crystal clear. Yeah, the whole thing, the time was just a joke, absolute joke. But there you go, we've said that so many times about the Glazers. But they'd have to be fools, really, let's be honest, to continue that with what the Glazers still want. Because they're going to have to do so much work, it's going to be unbelievable. And from what we're hearing, they're pretty much going to have to run the footballing side, which kind of suits the Glazers, because they don't really want to get involved anyway. But there you go. I mean, anything would be better than the Glazers at the moment. Let's not pick my nose on camera. So those are the things. And then I think they will sort out all the other problems. On the footballing side, stick to Ten Hag, believe in Ten Hag. Let's not quit on Ten Hag. And I think he's got to push through this system. And the players have got to get used to playing it. Because this is the only way we're going to get back to anything close to like we were before. But kind of, to some of my experiences, I would say every time there's some sort of optimism post-Fergie and you feel like we're getting somewhere and that we're moving forwards, there's like 2 steps back. But we'll see. So there you go. There's my bedtime rant on all the problems that are wrong with Manchester United. But I think it's pretty simple, some of the headline stuff that needs fixing. So if you've actually stuck through this for almost 3 hours, thanks for listening. This is probably the last rant I'm ever going to do.